The year is 2020, once again. We find ourselves on the mean streets of Paris, getting pelted with Molotovs. The presidency of Emmanuel Macron has been heavily unpopular, and as it enters its third year, crisis strikes, giving Macron a chance to prove himself, or to prove that he is a failure. The Yellow Vest protests reignite in early February after news of the COVID-19 virus having been hidden from the public for over a month surfaced, and ironically aiding in transmission, causing thousands to come down sick with the new plague. Protests continue, even as research on a vaccine and treatment are underway. Despite Macron's desperate attempts to plead with the public, ultimately, business interests, uncooperative strike leaders, have forced France to accept the plan proposed by the National Rally. The adoption of the Swedish model did two main things. It keeps the economy open, and it allows the sickness to transmit at will, accepting that building herd immunity is the best treatment for the public. This plan, backed by the National Rally, would assuage many concerns that Macron's response to the virus put forward. Concerns such as unemployment due to closed business, enforced curfews, among other policies. Although protests continue as the topic of pension reform became a major part of political discourse. See, in many countries, the social liberal parties often press for welfare, equity. They're more in line with social democracy than they are for true liberalism and deregulation. In France, they function differently. Macron has been pushing to heighten the retirement age from 62 to 64 for quite some time, just the latest in his push for sustainable economics. The National Rally of Le Pen and the New Popular Front under Mélenchon fight tooth and nail in the legislature to prevent any reforms from passing. Legislation to quell the protests is halted, and when something does pass, like the Swedish model reforms, the National Rally takes credit and has a field day in the media. As if it couldn't possibly get worse for Macron, the oil crisis of 2020 begins in June. Saudi Arabia, now in a civil war, has decimated the global oil supply. Prices that were already high due to a Macron carbon tax double, up to 40 euros per liter of petrol. Horrible. The protests return, yet louder. If it weren't for how dismal the situation is, you could almost believe the protesters were being paid. There's hardly a day that goes by in France where something isn't being lit on fire over petrol prices. Some media outlets genuinely believe they are being paid. The reality? Shit's bad. Shit's really bad. Le Pen announces her run at the lowest moment of Macron's administration. The National Rally begins to campaign. Meanwhile, the New Popular Front of Mélenchon breathes new life into the French left. The liberal center ails between two angry and grinding gears. Both Le Pen and Mélenchon work with populist rhetoric, disillusioned with the EU, at times anti-immigration, and both with a France-first mindset. The only difference really is the phrasing, the ideology, and the past. Whereas Mélenchon once was a real Marxist, Le Pen is the golden-haired daughter of France's prolific far-right gentleman of the same name, Jean-Marie Le Pen. The National Rally has gone in a reformist direction under the daughter, modernizing their message and pulling away from the racist past of the party under her father, much to the chagrin of those loyal to the Reconquête Party and those like Bardella, who maintain their loyalty to the National Rally, all while opposing the moderate direction of Marine Le Pen. The military make their move, stapling demands to the doors of government buildings, Martin Luther style. Not that one. Nope, not this one. This one, the priest. Wait, they were both. Fuck it. The Swiss, the one from Swiss, and several military leaders speak to Le Pen privately. They have a list of demands for her, demands she rejects. They threaten to replace her with Marshal de Villers, but de Villers declines the position after a party vote reflects a close split between supporters of Le Pen and the supporters of a de Villers presidency. If the right are to win, they have to be unified, and in short order, The ballots will fly. The militarists are scorned, but Le Pen will win, even without the military's support. After all, guns don't vote. It's been a long, hard term of senseless liberal reform, failures under pressure, and fire and death on the streets of Paris. The people vote for order. A narrow majority voting for Le Pen puts her into power without a majority. While she's not passing any laws anytime soon, she knows of a way to remedy her situation. And so, she gets to work. The National Rally has long been the most prolific right-wing force in France, and today it leads, but it hardly rules. The liberals and socialists are in hard opposition. Promises of change cannot be kept without an electoral majority, and so Le Pen has to accept her reality. The National Rally is triumphant, but it is dead in the water. It has to rebrand the party herself. She must become the CDU of France, the Merkel of Paris, a center-right voice of reason. For now, she conceals her intentions to moderate, but she can't do so forever, holding backdoor talks with Macron and his party to negotiate a coalition agreement between them, securing a narrow majority. As they begin to pass reforms as a voting bloc, immigration, economic, tax reform, they pass. Le Pen is becoming more popular, but all of these reforms are muted. People look into what the laws actually do and find them to come up short in many areas. Immigrants still flood France, taxes remain high, and rather than raise the retirement age, retirees are getting paid a little less on the pensions. You can't touch the pensions. Reconquête, the party of Zemmour, exits the scene and dissolves. Shortly thereafter, the newly named Republican Union begins to fracture. Bardella exits with a radical group of the party, and Le Pen is branded a traitor to the movement. The French right quickly identifies the newly formed Republican Union as a centrist force that has used them as a way to enter power. And now, the Republican Union is in bed with Macron and the liberals. A new party is formed to replace Reconquête. Revolution at Renouveau. Larger, more radical, made of former identitarians, fascists like Benedetti, Zemmour himself, and the Bardellans. Under the banner of this new party, Benedetti acquires leadership. An outspoken fascist, he controls an alarming number in the polls, not to mention the far left has continued to radicalize. Self-proclaimed Jacobins have disavowed Mélenchon and gone even further. Democratic socialism just isn't enough anymore. Red and black banners do to us what we did to Macron, grinding us between them, eroding at our support. We still hold a legislative majority, but how long will we? As riots consume France again, Le Pen can't help but watch as she becomes Macron, the very man she overturned, and Macron stands with her knowingly as she gazes upon the fires visible from her office. The center is corroding again. The party that promised radical change changed nothing. Politics couldn't be more polarized in the nation. We've entered a crisis that reflects the 1930s quite well. The only option now is to turn to the military and to the police to acquire support. With cities in flames, Le Pen finally acquired the support for a string of law and order bills centered on lifting restrictions on the police to crush protests nationwide. She focuses on the left, but the right proves to be armed and backed by some dangerously rich benefactors. Military units are deployed to keep order in some cities, but many of the soldiers simply allow the fascists to tear shit up. If we cannot even trust our military, who can we trust? Is it really so bad that we be moderate, that we be reasonable? Crackdowns continue. Eventually, Things begin to settle down, but demonstrations and social media remain abuzz. The political climate of France is hostile still and uncontained. At the same time, the Soviet Union is restored in Moscow, and the newly elected Yuri Afonin does his best impression of Lenin, piecing together the Union with force of arms. A ghost of the 90s come back to haunt us. The Soviet resurgence only harms our efforts to contain radicals. Both the left and right are emboldened by their rise for the complete opposite reasons, and we are stuck in the middle. The military makes it clear to Le Pen that if they do not receive total backing and funding for the remainder of her doomed presidency, that they will restore order, with Benedetti in the near future. With Le Pen forced to accept, Benedetti calls off his men. The right wing use their money to continue to sway the population, with help from some interesting figures. One financier linked with the identitarian wing is a one Jean-Christophe Napoleon. How interesting. During the anti-Le Pen riots, it was no secret that Jean-Christophe had, through his investment firm Léon Capital, funded Le Pen. But it hit the headlines in March of 2024 that Mr. Napoleon's car was lit on fire and his main offices in Paris defaced and also lit on fire. Understandably, Jean-Christophe was tired of seeing it, and now it had come to hit him directly. He was all in with Benedetti, not with his fascist doctrines, but with a hard-line anti-communist stance. But besides his car being lit on fire, Napoleon disappears back into the sea of information, not to be seen again for a few years. Under duress, the army reforms begin. As instructed by the military, the reinstatement of conscription, withdrawal from NATO's unified command, new funding for new tech, general military readiness, and even funds for a homegrown aerospace industry, France finally gains its own satellites. It is expensive, but necessary. Adopting a modernized version of Gaullist dirigism, Le Pen's government begins to develop the industry and control competition among the heavy industry sector. The government quickly adopts a state capitalist stance, and by 2025, the industrial sector had grown to meet the standards of a renewed military force. Several armies are formed, with $30 billion in contracts tenured for a huge number of infantry fighting vehicles, newly developed fourth-generation tanks, and self-propelled artillery platforms. Organized into infantry and armored units, these two templates would go on to define French military doctrine for decades to come, with the infantry providing the backbone and the armor providing the heavy support. As the Soviets begin to invade Central Asia and the Caucasus, it becomes increasingly evident that we are the only European power ready for war, a war that is sure to come, with the Moldovans having unilaterally joined the CSTO, effectively encasing Ukraine in a multi-angle territorial hug. Invasion is imminent, and as build-up on the Polish border begins, our forces move to intervene. Ukraine is invaded, and while we had hoped it would simply be another small grab of land, it's the full length of the sword plunging into the Ruthenian plains. Ukraine will fall unless we intervene. NATO command formulates a plan. Our separate command informs NATO of the vitality of the Baltic in holding the line. French forces are then deployed to cover Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia, while NATO tries to cover the southern front. With Turkey's exit some years prior, things look shaky. Our forces are strong, modern, and organized. They're holding, but the rest of the line isn't. While reports of successful defensive operations conducted by our forces roll in, footage of routed Germans and British units running away embarrass us and inflame our population. People protest against our allies, while the left protests against the war. As NATO forces are pressed further back, now into Romania, into southern Poland, a naval landing rockets into Gdynia, Soviet forces taking a vast swath of western Poland, even reaching the German border, only stopping 50 kilometers from Warsaw itself. Risking being cut off, we divert forces to cover the rear, but the center begins to falter, as does the Baltic with our reduced numbers. Soviets pour into Poland, entering Warsaw just a few months into the engagement, while we still are holding on to the Baltic. Poland miraculously cracks under the pressure, surrendering, forcing NATO as well to reconsider its position, surrendering as well. The war ends quickly. The French population knows we performed greatly on the field, and they feel betrayed by our allies and by our government. We could have won, they yell. Even Napoleon joins them in the streets. Being a businessman and the head of an investment firm, losing half of Europe to a communist power just wiped him out a few $100 million in foreign assets. He's furious. People rally around Napoleon as an opposition figure. In this time, it seems as though the whole world is still, and that France is in a state of shock. Just as it couldn't get worse, it does. For a time, it is simple protests, violent, fiery, usual for France. Le Pen sits in her office reading over proposals when the military barges in, offering an ultimatum: hand over control or lose it with force. Le Pen hands executive authority into the hands of the military, facing no other choice. One last Christmas passes. On the 25th, the streets are unreasonably quiet. Families are enjoying a hollow celebration. The Treaty of Vienna, signed just days before, is supposed to neuter our army, our economy, and make us owe reparations to the Soviets. Gifts are opened, pictures taken. Just a month from then, they would be killing each other. Just as Spain fell apart, as disorder gave way to a new march in Rome, a new German government, and a royal intervention in the UK, the government of national defense here in Paris begins a harsh crackdown on communists. This sets off a chain reaction, and shortly, France has fallen apart. Now, the military take the reins. With Benedetti and the party on their side, the government of Le Pen tries to pose resistance, going back on her deal, but we will seize back Paris, take down the revolts. France will be whole again, proud again, strong again. With the success of the army, the building of a new civilian government is underway. People across France still see the dashing young Jean-Christophe as a figure of certainty, while Benedetti, Camus, and others are uncertain, unfamiliar. To the people, they are no-name radicals who appeared in the media sphere in the chaos of Le Pen's presidency. Napoleon is a name they know, they revere. In France's lowest moment, Napoleon had brought them to the top of the world. Now his descendant claims he has a path forward. The Bloc Identitaire, having been banned by France in 2020, found a new home under Benedetti's party. But they did not agree with Benedetti, of course. Camus and men like him were very much their own thinkers. Jean-Christophe was able to convince the Bloc Identitaire to utilize him as a leader. Jean has long been a largely apolitical figure, a businessman running Léon Capital, which he started after a stint in New York City and later in London, working for Blackstone and Morgan Stanley. He spoke with a passionate voice to the council that had assembled to decide the leader of the nation. He said that, while France had to be strong, France had to be indivisible as well, that every part of France, the center, the left, the right, had to work as one. An impartial figurehead like himself, an emperor of the House of Bonaparte, would be the unifying force the nation needed. Deliberation ensued. Benedetti did not like it, but he was vetoed by the military's opinion. De Villers and many other officers joined the Identitarians in supporting the Bonaparte claim, reforging the empire and bringing greatness and glory back to France. The coronation would be in a month. In the meantime, it had to be decided what the new government would look like. The Identitarians got to work with the military, carving the Constitution to their liking. The new emperor, Jean-Christophe, the Bonaparte for a modern age. He's a very interesting man, at least when you consider his background. He's young, a barely cracking 40, smart with degrees from Harvard University, HEC Paris, and Saint Dominique for business, mathematics, and science. As an investor, his background will surely see the French Empire grow to surpass their pre-war economic height. But as a student of the arts of math and science, he knows the value of precision engineering and well-funded research. He will be a patron. He will be a damn good emperor, that's for sure. And if not for his education, look at his blood. Coursing through his veins is the blood of the Bourbon King Louis. Is that, what, XIV? Is that fucking, yeah. 14th, fuck. Coursing through his veins is the blood of the Bourbon King Louis XIV, Leopold II of Belgium, Wilhelm IV of the House of Orange, Charles III of Spain, Frederick William I of Prussia, George II of Great Britain, and finally, last but not least, Victor Emmanuel II of Italy, the first king of Italy. This single man has a claim to nearly every throne in Europe, and here he sits, an emperor. And the places he doesn't hold a claim to, his wife makes up for it. His marriage to Countess Olympia von Unzu-Arco-Zenneberg was consecrated in 2019, and in 2022 they had a son. The House of Arco-Zenneberg doesn't sound important, but she is the granddaughter of Charles I of Austria, a Habsburg, and a great-granddaughter of Ludwig III, the last king of Bavaria. She also happens to be related to the Bourbons and the House of Savoy as well. This technically means they had shared ancestors, but this is European monarchism. Everyone's related somehow. But this power couple, with their qualifications and claims combined, could rule with some legitimacy all the way to Lviv, Ukraine, without much fuss from monarchists. Jean-Christophe is not just France. He's Europe, and House Bonaparte is to be the ruler of this whole continent in time. For now, it's time to assess the European situation and carve out our spot in the sun. The Spanish and Italians will become a problem in the future. They are ultranationalist dictatorships following Mussolini's teachings. They oppose French dominance, and they oppose the monarchies of the Old World. The identitarians, by and large, promote unity of Latins, the Bardellans especially, but Camus and Napoleon see a Europe unified. While their visions differ, the effect is similar. Spain is hot off the trail of its own civil war. Their forces, like ours, are sharpened with the blood of their own countrymen. Italy, however, possesses a fully intact army, up to NATO standards, with favorable mountainous terrain covering most of their country. Our Latin brothers will not be easy to make bend, but we will begin with Iberia, our own peninsular campaign, one that we hope will not end the same as the last one. There are two main obstacles between us and victory in Spain and Italy: the Pyrenees and the Alps. To overcome these challenges, it would require specialized units, traditionally, but we do not have time to train special Alpine units to conquer these nations. We need swift victories, and we need them now. We have decided to fund Padanian separatists in the Italian north. Padania is a strange concept created by Lega Nord, dating back to the 1990s. They make up a small but vocal part of the political scene. We will exploit their wish for freedom in order to divide and conquer the peninsula. In Iberia, we attempt to use our speed to our advantage. The mechanized infantry find difficulty traversing the mountains. The armor as well, our own chevaliers, find trouble. But once we're over, it's only a matter of time. Madrid is right there, and Lisbon not much further. Lessons learned in Iberia have taught us a better method for handling the Italians. General Pasqualiani will take some assault forces on a path from Corsica to land directly onto Rome and cut the peninsula in half. Meanwhile, we have another army of reserves to funnel in, all while the main force attempts to break across the Alpine front, but without much success. Funneling more forces into the Roman landing, we decide to exploit our naval and ground superiority to the fullest, pressing north to seize vital pieces of land, cutting their supply, and enabling our forces to make it over the Alps at long last. They are stubborn. They'll force us to take nearly everything. A landing is prepared for Sicily. They will learn to bow in time. With final victory over Spain and Italy, the Padanians are integrated directly into the empire. The Italian governorate, including Rome, is left to control the remainder of the territory of Italy. Spain and Portugal are unified, the Iberian Occupational Authority keeping control of our southern brothers. We can finally begin to integrate the entire Latin world into our empire, work on expanding and refining the military, and finally investing in a sizable air force. Napoleon I created much of the basis of what is considered modern law in France. The Napoleonic Code, while barely surviving, remains an influential part of French law. The identitarians are still inherently a group derived from fascism, ethno-nationalism, or even National Socialism in some forms. Their economic ideas embrace corporatocracy, while also integrating the class cooperation goals of the fascist and National Socialist systems. Through state-controlled unions, monopolies, and worker syndicates, we work on a form of national syndicalism that blends the decentralized imperial system of old with benevolent autocracy and state capital economics. As such, capital remains a major form of control. No one knows this as well as Jean-Christophe himself. We rebuild the euro, a natural evolution of the currency, from a form of liberal control to a currency of French domination. Rebirthing the continental system, we pick up where the European Union left off, spreading the euro to our subjects and allies alike, forcing them into our economic compact, and placing ourselves at the front of Europe. By all means, for now, the identitarians are the men who got Napoleon where he is. But by the end of this, with the fall of Moscow, Napoleon will be so popular with the people and the army that no council of people will be able to hold down the first consul. With these reforms, we stabilize a broken economy. We return normalcy to European markets, and we rebuild French industrial production. Despite the long-term supremacy of German industry, we have at long last surpassed even their most inflated production margins. The Bonapartist system is rejected by Germany. Their Rattelsführer is not a fascist nor a Nazi, but a man behind a mask obsessed with remilitarization in the Prussian style. At the first moment of peace, the Germans will turn on us. We know this, and we will be more than their match when that time comes. For now, we have just finished shaking hands with our allies across the Rhine. German forces are entering Czechia and the buffer state of Western Poland. Our forces are finishing up a last training exercise before mass deployment along the Soviet border. Their new chairman, Alexander Lukashenko, has invested heavily in the military of the Union. We will soon find their army to be valiant fighters, but they will find our resources to be quite bottomless. To Moscow again, for vengeance.
Vous qui aimez la joie, l'amour et l'amitié, venez donc.
The victory over Russia is a total one. 2 million Reds dead in the earthbed. We didn't expect the Russian government to completely collapse, but they have done so. And the East is now split into colonies of Germany. The perfidious Teutons believe themselves the new rulers of Europe. It's only a month before the Pact of Steel breaks, more like a pact of wood. We form the Vichy Protocols as a reaction, and the Germans claim Alsace-Lorraine from us. Old habits die hard. They will die even harder. Our forces are preparing along the Alpine and Western European front lines, but in the meantime, the weakened Levantine states open an opportunity for France to reopen our colonial ambitions and reclaim Syria, Lebanon, and to take Palestine while we're at it. Operation Phoenician is a simple one. Our top amphibious general, Pascaliani, is again tasked with securing a landing. Our Marines overwhelm Lebanon, reinforcements pipeline in, and we spend the next month enduring an Arab onslaught before rocketing out of the pocket and securing Palestine, then pressing for Damascus. But before we can finish the last vestiges of resistance, the Germans seize the opportunity to take us by surprise. But we were prepared. After all, if there's one thing Le Pen did right in her presidency, it was launching those satellites. Germany has no orbital recon network. We knew weeks in advance about their buildup. With our forces returning from the Levant, Germany will perish in short order.
Jean, you won't go to hop on my home way, you dear?
I will see to it that the operation is swift, mon chéri. We will minimize destruction this way.
You know, every time someone says a war will end fast, it doesn't. Yeah.
I've seen the numbers, I promise you. In a few months, you will have your home again, my darling.
I don't know why, but yeah just fits there. Yeah. Perfect voice acting. 10 out of 10. Book me again, please.
It takes 28 days. 28! It's hardly worth a time lapse. We breach their front and cross the Rhine, and in no time we find ourselves in Frankfurt, Hamburg, then finally crashing into Berlin itself, before liberating the birthplace of the Empress Olympia, Munich. Germany collapses, our empire is consolidated. It took very little time, and very few died in the chaos as a result. We have established a new confederation of the Rhine. We occupy Hanover once again, and Jean-Christophe has given his wife, Empress Olympia, the thrones of Bavaria, her birthplace, and Austria, the throne of her ancestors. House Bonaparte rules the Latin realm of Europe, while the Germanic realm is ran by Arco-Zenneberg, bound by marriage to Paris. Poland, our steadfast historical friends, are reborn in full, the Grand Duchy standing proud, free of German or Soviet rule. As for the splintered Far East, Ukraine, Belarus, Russia, we have decided to ensure they will not rise for a long time. Dropping nuclear weapons on 5 targets, we incinerate many of their leaders and remaining industrial capacities. No threat from Europe shall soon rise again. And for Sweden, the heirs of Bernadotte remain in power, and we restore them to the proper authority that they ought to have. Bonaparte, Bernadotte, Arco-Zenneberg. Together, the 3 houses of a united European order. In a decade, France will return to West Africa and Madagascar. In a century, this great European order shall sit on top of the world. The legacy of Jean-Christophe, the Emperor-Director, will be known for millennia to humanity as the man who rebirthed the French Empire from the ashes of the unipolar world. While America is reforged under Nikki Haley and China owns the East, the road between them, Africa and Europe, is ours alone to behold. Thank you all so much for attending today's video. It's been a pleasure to make. It took me a while. Frankly, I have had to go over what I wanted to do in terms of time today. I've got work in about 5 hours, good lord. But I had to get it done. I had to get it done. I keep falling out of the rhythm, and I enjoy it. Don't get me wrong, I enjoy every second of it. Every second of it. Anyhow, let's move on to my patrons. My $5 patrons, my Knights of Bisconia: Panchak, Steve Hayes, Samay Cash App, Cyclonus777, Boost Gumps, Null Scorpion, Rainbow Flies, Santiago Soto, and Gotts Hubner, and my singular taxpayer, showcased here. Postscript: a guy called Luther Manhole just gave me $50! Holy shit!